everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical. And if you're watching and it happens to be a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. I'm very excited to be here today because I am finally sitting down to record my thoughts and review of one of the hottest movies of 2025 and one of the most highly anticipated, one of the most talked about movies of 2025. And that, of course, was the long-awaited theatrical debut of James Gunn's DCU, and that, of course, we're talking about Superman 2025, as most people are saying, starring, of course, David Cornsweet as Superman, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor as the main three starting cast members. And there's plenty of other well-known names and up-and-coming names within the movie as well. So, of course, I had sort of dipped and dabbled my thoughts into previous review videos about my thoughts on my up-and-coming eventual seeing of this movie and how I really wasn't on board with the whole reinvention of the DC film world. I know it's changed names as well, because look, I'm not going to deny the fact that I loved Zack Snyder's vision. I loved every single one of those movies. Maybe one or two were so-so, but overall, I truly enjoyed that world because I thought that it was a true homage to the comic books with different and new envisioning takes, but at the end, the core basis of the classic comic book lore was throughout Zack Snyder's vision. And so when everything was getting reinvented and how all of a sudden there were all of these Snyder bros, I was just so not excited about a brand new DC world, especially even when the MCU had reached rock bottom, it still managed to keep its wheels turning. So I basically said I don't want to have any part of it, but then when I saw Creature Commandos, the animated series on HBO Max, I had a little bit of hope, because I really enjoyed it, and I had a great time with it. Not to mention, I did enjoy James Gunn's previous DC projects, Peacemaker Season 1, as well as the second Suicide Squad movie. So, Superman comes out. The trailers looked pretty good, especially with the great new electric guitar version of the John Williams classic score from '78. So by the time Superman hit theaters, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to give in and I'm going to see it. And the reviews were a mixed bag, but it seemed to be that a lot of people, regardless of how they felt about the overall movie, they still had a good time at the theater. So I had my opportunity, I bought my ticket, and I went to see it, and I think I feel that I fall within the majority of the people that saw this movie. It was a good theatrical experience, but the movie was not perfect. I had a good time most of the time, but I definitely felt that the movie had a lot of faults. But let's get into the positives first, because there is no denying that one of the best parts of this film is the acting. I thought that David Cornsweet was such a great choice to play Superman because he embodied a little bit of every Superman that came before him. From Christopher Reeve to the voices of Tim Daly and George Newbern to, of course, even Henry Cavill in Man of Steel. I saw a little bit of every cinematic Superman in this man playing this version of Superman, and he did a damn good job. Rachel Brosnahan, I've loved The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, so knowing that she was chosen to play Lois Lane, I had a feeling that she was going to be a good Lois Lane, and she was. She was a very believable Lois Lane. And Nicholas Hoult, who has been in many comic book movies before, did a great job as Lex Luthor. There were a couple of parts where I thought he was a little bit over the top, but a lot of people said the same thing about Jesse Eisenberg, and as me being a fan of Lex Luthor from the comics, he was not entirely always suave. He had a little bit of crazy in him, and Nicholas Hoult let that be known. But there were also other people in this movie that portrayed different characters. I mean, for me, the best part of the movie was Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern, as an actor who has constantly been in science fiction fantasy movies and voiced the Hal Jordan version of Green Lantern in the DC animated universe numerous times. To see him come and actually play a different Green Lantern, and knowing the type of actor and the personality that Nathan Fillion will give on screen, he was the perfect Guy Gardner. And the other characters, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, Krypto, yes, Krypto even, they were not the worst things in the world, but I also really loved the moments that took place in the Daily Planet, because they really went into the nitty-gritty of putting a news story together, and that's where I saw a little bit of the 1993 Lois and Clark show with Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher. So again, lots of homage to the classic Superman throughout. But, like I said, I think the biggest problem with this movie, and there's going to be a couple of things that play on that, is I think this movie was a bit of a try-hard. Meaning, I think James Gunn really wanted this movie to be a successful film in the box office. And it is doing a great job in the box office. The fact that people are actually taking their kids and making it a family event is saying a lot about this movie. But I feel that he was just trying, meaning James Gunn, just trying to please everybody a little too much. There was a great deal of action in this movie, which of course, that's what I want in a Superman film, but it made me feel like I was at a theme park ride than watching an actual movie. I also felt that there were certain things in the movie that just didn't really fit, particularly the one that everybody's talking about, and that's the whole thing about Krypton and Superman's parents. I did not like that. And no, Krypto was not the savior of this movie for me because, look, I'm not a dog person. I'm not going to lie about that. I do not care for animals. And I also just feel that the plot itself was too shallow. I mean, I had seen a lot of Superman in my days. And I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I'm not a fan of the Richard Donner Superman films. They're just not my thing. But there's a lot of Superman out there that I do like, and I just feel that it didn't seem to work well, entirely well, in this film. And because of that, I don't really have extremely high hopes and anticipation for the DCU moving forward. I know that there's a lot of talk right now about who's going to play Batman, who's going to play Wonder Woman, but, you know, if these movies do not hit their marks, and thankfully Superman seems to be doing so, the future for the DC cinematic universe, this new version, may not end up coming to fruition. A lot of people don't know if James Gunn is going in the right direction considering some of the projects that he has announced. And of course, a lot of people are upset about the fact that certain DC projects that are probably not within continuity of this new DCU are constantly getting pushed off. I personally am a little upset that there's really nothing great from DC Animation coming at this point in time. And because of the fact that James Gunn wants everything to be connected, I just feel that that's not necessarily a good business-making decision. But, again, it's not that Superman is a bad movie. I mean, I went, there were some parts where I rolled my eyes because I thought that things fell flat. I didn't understand why Hawkgirl had to scream every time she used her powers. I thought that Mr. Terrific was a little bit gangsta, which he shouldn't be. I didn't understand, and this is something that happens in every DC film with Superman, I don't understand why Lex Luthor always has to have a ditzy floozy of a girlfriend. It seems to only be in the Richard Donner lore, but you could have just given us Mercy. You know, even Zack Snyder put Mercy in the films, and that's a much better dynamic for Lex Luthor. And also we got a glimpse of Supergirl. That's something I'm not considering a spoiler alert because it's all over the internet. And even people are not enjoying that, but personally, I think that Supergirl could be a really fun character, and I think that she can really drive a film. But what I do feel is that Superman, for me, deserves a rewatch, not necessarily on the big screen, because I do feel that if I get an opportunity to sit down and watch this movie again, there may be a little bit more that I will like about it than the first time, because that's what happened with me with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That is what happened to me with the Amazing Spider-Man films with Andrew Garfield. Ironically, all Spider-Man movies. Very, very strange. But this movie is making money, and I am going to be watching for what James Gunn is going to be giving us in the coming years. I mean, right now we've got Peacemaker Season 2 coming out on my anniversary later this month, and I loved the first season. I love John Cena in that show, and I know that the other big talk is Lanterns, and I'm looking forward to that one too. So Superman, I will say, don't let this theatrical experience pass you by. I think that if you are going into it with a positive mindset and not really the best expectations, you will probably, at least, if anything, have a good time in the theater watching this movie. So I am going to give Superman an admirable 2.5 stars out of 4. At this point in time, I definitely want to watch it again, but I still haven't decided if I'm going to invest in the DCU on Blu-ray and DVD. So another one of my That's Comical colleagues did actually see this film. Cammie saw it. She has a lot to say about it. I'm hoping that she will watch this video and then put her own review on there and show me her agreements and disagreements. But in the meantime, everybody, put your comments in the box below. Let me know if you saw Superman and what you have to say about it, and I'll see you in the next one.